the stop should have taken 5 minutes. A broken taillight, a routine check, the kind of thing that barely registers as an inconvenience in most people's week. Officer Reyes was polite when he approached my window, explained why he'd pulled me over, and asked for my license and registration the way officers do 100 times a day without much thought behind it. I handed both over, already mentally calculating how much a replacement taillight would cost. He walked back to his vehicle. I waited, radio humming quietly, watching the evening light fade over the row of houses along the street. When he returned a few minutes later, something in his posture had changed. His expression wasn't suspicious exactly. It was closer to confusion, the look of someone double-checking a mistake they assumed had to be theirs. "Ma'am," he said slowly, "this is going to sound strange, but the system says you were declared dead 4 years ago." I remember the specific stillness that followed, the kind where your body reacts before your mind catches up to what was just said. I asked him to repeat it, not because I hadn't heard him, but because I needed a second to process a sentence that didn't belong anywhere near my actual life. He confirmed it again, showing visible discomfort himself, clearly aware this wasn't a normal traffic stop anymore. To his credit, he didn't treat me like a threat or a fraud. He seemed to understand correctly that whatever was happening had nothing to do with the taillight in front of us. "Who filed that?" I asked. He turned his laptop screen toward me. "Official documentation, county records, a death certificate filed 4 years earlier under my exact first and last name." My blood went cold, not from fear of the officer, but from the surreal experience of staring at proof of my own supposed death, while very much sitting upright in the driver's seat of my car. He let me follow up at the station rather than escalating anything further, understanding, I think, that whatever error had occurred wasn't something either of us could untangle on the side of the road. I drove home that night in a strange, hollow kind of shock, replaying the words "declared dead" over and over, trying to make sense of a sentence that refused to make sense. The following days turned into an education in exactly how fragile a person's paper existence really is. I called the county records office first, sat on hold long enough to finish an entire pot of coffee, and was transferred 3 separate times before someone finally pulled the actual filing. The clerk read off details slowly. My name, my birth year, a filing date 4 years earlier. None of it matched anything I remembered happening in my own life. It wasn't until I requested the original filer's information that the picture started to take shape. The name attached to the paperwork was my Aunt Diane. I hadn't spoken to her in years, not out of any dramatic falling out, just the quiet drift that happens in families over time. When I finally called her, my voice was calmer than I expected, mostly because I was too confused to be angry yet. She was silent for a long moment after I explained what I'd found. Then, slowly, the story came out. 4 years earlier, a distant cousin of ours had passed away unexpectedly out of state. Someone Diane barely knew personally, connected mostly through obligation rather than closeness. The cousin had shared my exact first and last name, along with a birth year, close enough to mine that no one questioned it during the rushed, grief-heavy process of handling the death paperwork. Diane, overwhelmed and unfamiliar with the family's more distant branches, had filed the necessary documents without realizing the identifying details didn't perfectly align with the relative she'd actually meant to file for. The deeper issue, as Clerk Martinez patiently explained once I finally reached the right department, was that the office processing the filing hadn't cross-verified the information as thoroughly as they should have. An overwhelmed system, an overworked clerk, a grieving relative moving quickly through an already difficult process. Small oversights stacked on top of each other until an entire legal identity slipped through unnoticed. For 4 years, my official existence simply hadn't reflected reality, dormant and undiscovered until a broken taillight happened to surface it. I want to be honest about something. My first instinct wasn't anger toward my aunt. It was closer to disbelief at how easily something this significant could happen without a single alarm being raised anywhere along the way. Diane, once she understood the mistake fully, was mortified in a way that felt genuine rather than performative. She became an active participant in fixing it, sitting with me through phone calls, signing corrective affidavits, driving to the county office when in-person verification was required. The process of legally reversing my death took weeks rather than minutes, a strange kind of bureaucratic irony. The amount of paperwork required to prove you're alive, far exceeding what it apparently took to declare you dead in the first place. Clerk Martinez, to her credit, stayed patient and thorough throughout, walking me through each step without ever making me feel like an inconvenience. It became clear the more time I spent in that office that she wasn't the exception. She was simply someone taking the time most systems don't build in enough space for. By the time everything was finally corrected, my relationship with my aunt had shifted slightly, not repaired exactly, but softened, built briefly around the strange shared project of untangling a mistake neither of us had caused intentionally. I think about that traffic stop often, less because of the fear it caused, and more because of what it revealed. Systems built on paperwork are only ever as reliable as the people moving quickly through them. Most of the time that's fine, but every so often a small oversight compounds into something much larger, and it takes patience, not panic, to trace it back far enough to finally set it right.